Opinions expressed on this radio program do not necessarily reflect the views of this radio station.
My friends and I always tune into the Todd Levitt Law Show. Todd is entertaining, informative, and always delivers the goods.
Todd might not tell you what you want to hear, but he's going to tell you what you need to hear. And all you got to do is listen.
Hold on, Todd. Don't let go. It's time for the Todd L. Levitt Law Show.
Welcome to the Todd L. Levitt Marijuana Law Podcast. Good morning, good evening, and good night. I'm yours truly, attorney Todd L. Levitt, broadcasting and podcasting in the middle of a hot, heated mitten. Thank goodness we're surrounded by fresh water, otherwise known as the Great Lakes. Craig Russell, the muscle, and the mothership. It's so hot recently across the nation of ours, especially in the Mitten State, that I've actually lost weight due to the heat.
Really? You've lost weight. You sweated out.
Lost weight. I am so hot, I am losing weight.
I'm not even going to say anything. You know, and it would be better if we didn't have those Great Lakes. God love them. But if there wasn't all that humidity and everything, it would even be probably a little nicer. But still.
Don't blame the Great Lakes, pure Michigan, baby. Also, we have Wisconsin and Minnesota. Can you name all 5 Great Lakes, by the way?
Of course. Superior, Michigan, Huron, Erie, Ontario.
Wow, very good. Craig Russell.
I'm from Michigan. You're from Michigan.
You were wrong last week about the Ohio-Michigan war. No, you were right about that. I know.
I was 113% right. Come on.
All right, here's another question for you. We are a law show, but I have another question for you. By the way, we opened up with one of my all-time favorite 80s English invasion groups, Echo and the Bunnymen, one of my favorite songs there. Great tunage.
Killing Moon, great song, yes.
There's a question, yes or no. Do the Great Lakes dump into Niagara Falls, which then dump into the Atlantic Ocean?
Of course, the St. Lawrence Seaway. That's how it gets. That's how trade from the Atlantic Ocean got into Chicago and everything. And back in the 1800s, they made the St. Lawrence Seaway and also the Erie Canal, and that's how that linked the Great Lakes in the Midwest to the Eastern Seaboard, and that's how shipping and everything got started. That's what happened to the Edmund Fitzgerald. That's why they were doing some shipping and stuff out to the St. Lawrence Seaway and everything. So
the cool thing about the Erie Canal is if you're on your way to New York and you're heading east, across Ohio into Pennsylvania, and in New York, you can actually see the Erie Canal and all the little towns that had popped up as a result of the Erie Canal and all the commerce that was traveling to and from. Pretty cool historic thing there.
If you ever travel this country, there's a lot of, big rivers, Missouri, Mississippi, et cetera, You should see all the towns. I mean, the water, that was what was the original interstate highway back in the 1800s. And that's where all these little towns popped up. That's where Minneapolis and St. Paul and New Orleans and all the towns along the Mississippi popped up, because the river, that's where the travel was. That's how the commerce got to you. So it was just much easier to have a city right there along the river.
And we did not even need attorney Steve Lato to tell us this stuff. We knew this stuff.
I was going to say,
when did we go from Law Show to History Channel? I'm just asking.
We need that weird guy with the hair and the poof, and they're using all those memes and everything. But we are a law show. What are we talking about this week? We got to have talking about some kind of law.
Well, I've got a major complaint, and I'm just fed up. It's my number one complaint of the year, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say most of our listeners will agree with me on this. We're going to be talking about, after our show last week, we just touched on Michigan's new emergency rules and regulations that have now been put forth. Number of emails regarding the fees, the new licensing types, how much are the fees, did those change, and this consumption establishment, a few emails in regards to that. So we're going to actually talk about and list off right from the rules and regulations itself what the requirements are and what the state is looking for if you want to operate a consumption establishment. So we're going to be talking about that on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. And also, obviously, one of the things I specialize in is driver's license restoration.
Sure.
I have literally, Craig, restored 6, 7, 8,000 or more individuals back to the restricted and full licensing in 25 plus years. So a question came up in regards to when can somebody in the state of Michigan approach a circuit court and ask for relief. So we're going to touch on that in a moment, and a lot of other stuff right here in the mothership. We have the Asabo canoe race coming up next week. That's right. A big deal.
Yeah, it is. That's a huge deal. The biggest. There's a 3 race. It's like the Triple Crown of canoe racing. One's in Montreal, one's in New York State, and this is the second of the 3, the Asabo River Canoe Marathon. It's about a 60-mile race from Grayling all the way to Oscoda on the Asabo River. It goes all the way through the night. Of course, if you're listening to this on the radio, 98.5 UPS is the official station of the Asabo River Canoe Marathon, and the festival all week long. There's a new Battle of the Bands and a music festival. This year, we're giving away kayaks and canoes, and of course, we'll have live coverage on the radio all night long, starting at 9 o'clock next Saturday night. There will be no Todd L. Levitt Law Show next Sunday, just as a little program.
Are you kidding me?
You get to sleep in. How about that?
Law versus canoe coverage? No, I'm happy about the canoe coverage. I enjoy the history of the race. It's just on Grayling, the men and women and the townspeople and all the volunteers that come out in Grayling, Michigan. Unbelievable. Jordan Wakely, my money is on Jordan Wakely. Todd Wakely, one of my best friends, it's his son Jordan. Jordan is just a pro athlete in half a dozen different, athletic things there, from mountain biking to running to the Spartan races. And he's also been doing the canoe race for a number of years. And last year, I believe, in the pairs division, he took first place with his, and I could be wrong, though. I thought he did.
I thought he did too.
His partner there. Yeah, I thought he did too. So I'll be looking forward to seeing Jordan shred the Asabo River.
I tell you, that thing, it's a marathon. It's the canoe marathon, but that is an endurance test. It's about 15 hard hours of paddling, and you have to get out in portage a few times. You have to go through some dams. You have to get out. Actually,
did you say portage or portage?
Portage. It's called portage.
No, it's portage. It's not portage. I am portaging.
No, I'm going to tell you. I know this. Trust me. I've lived this canoe marathon before. Sat up all night listening. I know.
Portage.
Larry Roberts, the guy who does the play-by-play for 98.5 UPS, he's been doing it for 25 years. He says it's portage. I'm believing him.
I'm going with Steve Lato. We're going to have to ask attorney Steve Lato
and I bet you he would know too. I told him before. I said,
it's
Steve,
portaging.
He needs to write a book about the canoe marathon. It's an interesting thing. It's unfortunately, if you don't live in the greater Crawford County area in Grayling, it really gets lost. Now, 98.5 has tried to do. We've done a radio network of radio stations all across the state and even into Canada and New York where they're really into it. A radio network of reports all night long on the race. But it is, boy, if you go anywhere outside of that part of the state of Michigan or in that part of the country for that matter, they've never even heard of it before. It's amazing. Go on YouTube and search for Osable River Canoe Marathon Start. They run down the streets of Grayling and jump into the river at the old fly shop. It's really a sight to see. We see these 70, 80, 90 teams of guys carrying canoes, women too, everybody running down the streets. It's a full-on sprint it's about 200 yards to the river to jump in to start the race. It's really amazing to watch.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that take place. How about a complaint, Craig Russell?
Okay, we can get to a complaint. Yep.
So here's my complaint, and I think it's one that's universal.
Okay.
And I am just absolutely fed up with standing in line at gas station convenience stores, other stores that sell scratch-off lotto tickets. I'm going to tell you right now, this is not even I am totally serious.
Okay.
I am sick and tired of waiting in line while individuals sit there for 15, sometimes 20 freaking minutes and say, yeah, give me 2 on 11. How about number 5? No. Give me 1 9. And in the meantime, they're scratching them off. Oh, but here's a $3 winner. And look, I have friends and family. They play scratch-off tickets. I've purchased scratch-off tickets. But here's the thing.
Who hasn't?
If you're purchasing tickets and you know you're going to stand there for 15 freaking minutes while the rest of us have to work, have to get our kids from school, get to daycare, have to shred a gnar on a single track somewhere, or we're in a rush to get for the birth of our child, we don't have time for you to sit there 1 through 50 and figure out what scratch-off tickets you want and then turn them in. And I don't blame the lotto person who's purchasing the tickets because, like I said, I've purchased them. But take a look behind you. If you see 50 freaking people that are waiting and have somewhere to go and you may not be working that day or you're just not working, period, how about moving aside? And to all the establishments who allow their employees to stand there and do these things while everybody else is waiting, especially in the heat if there's no air condition, how about different rules and policies? Here's what I'm doing, Craig Russell. I am actually creating, with Big Hair, big shout out to Big Hair, we are creating suggestion boxes. And we're going to start taking these to gas stations and convenience stores, and we're going to put in a suggestion in regards to how to run a business and not let this happen. So I am just sick and tired of waiting in line while somebody says, give me number 1. No, give me, what's number 3 like? What's 11? Hey, do you have any more number 20s? I'm fed up with it.
I know you probably use this just as an example, but one of your examples is standing in line, paying for your gas or whatever, waiting for the birth of your child. That was great. I about fell out of my chair.
My point is,
when your significant other is in labor, that's the time you go to the gas station to buy some scratch-off lottery tickets.
Greg, I've seen, I've seen women and some men, but more recently it was 2 women who were, taking a half an hour. I could arrive at a convenience store, stand in line waiting for some individuals to decide how many tickets they want. And if the birth of my child was 6 months away, I would be in that line for 6 months. That was the point. I think everybody out there feels my pain. What I'm saying is can the stores please talk to their employees and I mean, how it's not hard to count. I mean, look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 people in line. The clock is ticking. I mean, the state of Michigan, I blame the state of Michigan. Here's why. All the money that's supposed to go to the states to fix our roads and the education and other things. I mean, I'm 54. You're 89. We've heard for years and years and years that all the lotto money is going to, help the infrastructure of the states in which we live in. I mean, come on. Where is it? Well, I haven't seen anything change in my lifetime. Have you?
No, and actually most of the lottery money goes towards education. But again, they build that into their budgets and everything. They say, all right, we know we're getting the $52 billion this year from the lottery, so we can just put that right in, and they're still short of stuff. What stores need to do, have a dedicated lottery ticket line. Simple as that. Don't take up the main line where people are buying gas or buying smokes or paying for their beer or whatever. Have a separate line on the other side of the counter. Have somebody working it. Say, that's where you buy your lottery tickets. That's where you can sit there and wait for 10 minutes for your scratch offs, because the other people waiting behind you are waiting to do the same thing, and they're going to be more understanding.
Do you agree with me on this one?
Oh,
Let me
totally.
hear.
Totally.
I mean, are you that guy? Have you been in line before where someone is saying, hey, give me 4 number 9s.
Yeah.
In fact, give me 2 number 2s. And while you're at it, what's the number 20 over that? Is number 17 a new game? What is the game?
If you're a lottery player, you look behind you and go, why don't you let these 4 people go ahead of me, and then I'll stand there and take up your time when there's nobody else coming up. I
know for a fact that my good friend and families, Jane and Eugene, agree 100% with me. They're family, big listeners of the show. Big shout out to those folks there. By the way, Steve Lotto, we shot him a text to see if he could join the show to decide if it's portage or portaging. He sent me a picture. He's out biking right now.
Okay.
So
all right.
He's out shredding the gnar on a gravel road somewhere.
Okay.
So
but he doesn't have an answer. He doesn't have an answer, though?
No, there's no answer.
I got you.
Yeah, but hey, we are a law show, and we have a lot of law to get to here. And I'm fired up right now about this Lotto thing. I'm over it. I don't know what to do. And I'm sick and tired of every time I have to purchase something, I have to answer questions like I'm taking the ACT. We've talked about this before.
Yes.
Can I please just go to a store and not ask for my email? Do I have a membership? Do I want to donate money to something? I'm sick and tired. Can I please just walk in and walk out somewhere? I'm tired of all the time I waste at these locations now. And remember a couple weeks back, I complained about how I'm getting all my news now from gas stations. When you turn on a pump, the news comes on.
Yep.
Okay. I'm over that as well. So
I would imagine so.
Yeah,
most of that
a redundant complaint from attorney Todd L. Levitt.
And speaking of Todd L. Levitt, we got to take a break. We'll be right back with the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. Hold on. The Todd L. Levitt Law Show thanks you for listening to our podcast. If you have a business you think people would want to hear about, the Todd L. Levitt Law Show accepts advertising. We can promote your business to a very specialized, targeted audience. Any size commitment and any budget. Email toddlevittlawshow@gmail.com for more information about sponsoring and advertising on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show podcast.
Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. Coming back strong, Craig Russell with Echo and the Bunnymen, Killing Moon. I love that song.
Great song, great band. Definitely got to be on our 80s dance party mega mix list whenever we do that. Have we figured out when we're doing that thing yet?
I don't know. I'm too tied up right now with organizing the 2020 420 Canna Hemp Expo coming back to the Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort It's going to be bigger and better than ever. So looking forward to getting the listeners all the information about all the vendors and speakers and what's going to take place at the 2020 420 Can of Hemp Expo right here in Michigan.
Should be a good time. Speaking of that, imagine by 2020, there'll be a lot of differences in the landscape of how marijuana and cannabis shops will be running in the state, and also people, how they will be able to use the product. And that's some stuff we're going to talk about today, correct?
Correct. Got a question. I often do get questions from out-of-state residents who are not in the state of Michigan, whether or not they are able to grow in the state of Michigan. Can they come to Michigan and participate in grow operations? And the answer is yes and yes. And my answer to that is one of two ways. One, you become part of a group or as an individual who apply for one of the multitude of licenses now available, whether it's a Class A marijuana grower, Class B marijuana microbusiness, processor, retailer, transporter, compliance facility, consumption establishment. If you meet all the requirements that the state of Michigan has put forth and you have an application, then you may own part or in entirety one of these licenses. So that's the first way somebody from out of state can participate in Michigan's new recreational program. The second way is if you are a resident, meaning you have a residency here in Michigan, you can grow 12 plants. So residents in the state of Michigan, under Michigan's new Prop 1 that passed, that's what we're talking about today, you can grow 12 plants if you're 21 and older in your residence. If you have a legal right to possess an entity, then you can grow 12 plants. I'm not referring to anything that has to do with being a caregiver or medical marijuana. We're referring strictly to recreational laws here in the state of Michigan. So 12 plants per household is where the rules allow. So if you are from Ohio, but you have a lease in Monroe, Michigan to an apartment, and it's legal and you're legally there for whatever reason, I don't see why you can't have 12 plants growing.
Now, what about people who do live out of state who do not have a residency in Michigan? Can they still participate somehow? Do they have to physically purchase some kind of a building or a piece of land or have some kind of place to do this? Or can they strictly do it kind of like by osmosis, by where they are? Can they still do it here even though they don't have a legal residency in Michigan?
Well, that's the first aspect, and the first avenue is become part of a business that's applying for one of the covenant licenses that the state allows.
So to be involved with one of those businesses that do have some kind of legal representation in Michigan or a legal a lease or some kind of a dwelling here, that's how you do it. So there's no way to do it if you just travel to here and then travel away. You have
No. You can't just travel to Michigan and set up a grow operation. I mean, you have to have some kind of legal justification to be here in the state, either through one of these licenses that you've been approved through the state of Michigan, or you have a residence here. I mean, Again, there's a lot of gray areas here, because what if you work in Ohio and Michigan, but you're an Ohio resident, but you also have a lease in an apartment in the state of Michigan? Well, who's to say that you can't grow your 12 plants if you're 21 and over in that apartment in Monroe, Michigan, or wherever it is you live? So, for instance, here's the new fee structure that just came out for licensing to apply for a license in the state of Michigan.
Okay.
If you want to become a Class A marijuana grower, that's Class A, Craig. Okay. The fee is $4,000.
What does that entail?
That's just the fee, the initial licensure fee.
Okay,
it's an application fee. So at the beginning of each state fiscal year, the agency will collect a fee. And unfortunately, under the new rules and regulations, this fee could increase by 10%. And they're justifying it to pay for administration and enforcement of this act and all these rules. So an applicant, for a state license will have to submit an application that's accompanied by a non-refundable application fee of $6,000 upon initial application as required under these rules.
So it's going to cost you
an initial $6,000 fee, and then there's additional fees are listed as follows. These are additional fees over the $6,000 application fee. Class A marijuana grower, $4,000. Class B marijuana grower, $8,000. Class C marijuana grower, $40,000, there's something now called an excess marijuana grower. So you could get a license, and for an additional $40,000, it will allow you to grow over and beyond what you've already been approved for.
So that's what,
interesting.
That's what the A, B, and C is how much you can grow. Is that what the levels mean?
Well, there's different plant levels that you can grow for each of those.
Okay.
So, yeah, no, that's not what we're talking about, though. We're talking about the fees right now.
Right. I just want to make
Class
sure.
Class A is just 100 marijuana plants.
Okay.
A Class B license is 500 marijuana plants in the state of Michigan, and Class C is 2,000 marijuana plants. Now, the state is allowing for stacking of licenses. So you could grow, for instance, you could get a license to grow 6,000 plants. So you've been granted 6 Class C license. But each time you try to stack a license, you're going to pay an additional licensing fee.
Well, that makes sense.
For instance, Class C marijuana grower, in addition to the $6,000, you're going to have to pay $40,000 for that state license type. So I would assume each time you want to apply for multiple licenses, you're paying multiple fees.
That's where the state's going to make money, and then eventually it's going to
money,
baby. Trickle down. It'll trickle down to the communities where these licensed facilities are, and that's when you'll start to see people. That's when the dominoes will fall. Then everybody's going to go, how can we get this in our community? We want this operation here. We want to reap the benefits of all that money. What do you know?
Yeah.
About that?
Now, how about the micro business that Attorney Scott Roberts has talked about on his show? In fact, Scott Roberts, attorney at law, is coming back on the show here in a couple of weeks.
Okay. To talk more about that and talk about some of these things.
Talk more about that. $8,000 over and beyond the $6,000 application for a micro business. The fee is $8,000.
Okay.
Processor, $40,000. Marijuana retailer, a.k.a. dispensary, in addition to the $6,000 non-refundable application fee, $25,000. Same thing with marijuana secure transporter. And then the safety compliance facility, $25,000 as well. Now, designated consumption establishment, $1,000. And that's where we got a bunch of emails on those that want to open up what the state is calling designated consumption establishment.
We talked about that last week, a place where you can go and you can actually use the product or possibly also buy and use the product. But at the very least, you go, you pay a club fee or something like that. You might get some food, maybe get some place.
You cannot purchase the product at a designated consumption establishment. Unless you already... Correct.
Unless they already have a retail license to begin with. But if it's just a place that's just opening up a pole barn with a couple of pool tables, a snack bar, and oh, by the way, there's a bunch of couches over there, you can do what you like there, that's what you're talking about. That's the consumption. $1,000, that doesn't seem very much at all. I mean, that seems pretty reasonable. Would you agree?
Oh, I think it's extremely reasonable. But the requirements in order to open up a consumption establishment are off the chart. It's ridiculous what they're going to put people through who want to open up these businesses. And I have the list right in front of me, Craig Russell. Imagine that.
What do you know? Okay, let's hear it.
Well, for instance, if you are an individual and you live in a community, first you're going to need approval from... I mean, you're going to have certain zoning classifications and zoning information that you have to put forth to the state. But the state is going to require, amongst other things, ready for this?
Okay.
The establishment's size and dimensions. How big is your, smoke club going to be? And they want specific designated sizes and dimensions. They want the physical address where it's going to be located. Okay, that's reasonable.
All right.
They want location of common entryways, doorways, or passageways.
All right.
Okay, not unreasonable.
Sure.
Means of public entry or exit.
Okay.
A detailed floor plan and layout that includes, Craig, the following: number of rooms, dividing structures, firewalls, as I just said, exits and entrances, locations of hazardous material storage, if applicable, means of egress. They want construction details for structures and fire-rated constructions for required walls. They want the building structure information. They want the building type information, not limited to commercial. Is it a warehouse? Is it industrial? Is it a converted property? Is it a house? Is it a building? As you said, is it a pole barn, a greenhouse, laboratory, or a center? They want all the zoning classification information that you're obtaining to do this from the community in which you are going to be operating in. They want a business plan, which includes, by the way, a description of the proposed hours of operation. And if you're just tuning in, we are talking in the state of Michigan in regards to individuals who want to open up what the state is calling designated consumption establishments. This is a license whereby people can come in and smoke product. Now, the business plan must include hours of operation. It also must include proof of possession of the premises where the proposed consumption establishment will be located. They want to know when you're opening. They want a copy of the lease. I mean, this is unbelievable.
Well,
they want an operations plan, Craig, with an explanation and details of how employees will monitor and prevent over-intoxication, just like a bar. They want underage access. How is the establishment going to control underage access to this establishment? How are they going to control the illegal sale or distribution of marijuana on their property or marijuana products? And how are they going to prevent any other potential criminal activity? They also want you to have a documented employee training manual that addresses all components of what we just talked about and the operation plan. I mean, Craig, for frickin' sakes, there we go again. Here's an example of how the government is making it extremely difficult for the average citizen out there who has fought the good fight for frickin' decades to open a business and go into business. This is absolutely, you got to have a master's degree to come up with all this.
Todd, but I'm going to, you know what? All right, here we go. Point, counterpoint. I'm going to give you the other side of that. Have you ever tried to open up a business before? You got to have all that stuff anyway. If you open up, let's say you open up a franchise business, guess what? You're going to need every bit of that and more to open up a business. I don't think it's all that unreasonable.
I completely disagree with you.
No.
I have opened up businesses. I used to own a skateboard shop.
Okay,
all
was
I had to do,
was it a franchise skateboard shop? Try and open up.
No, it was my own business. I owned a skateboard shop 12 years. We had Haro BMXs. We had all kinds of decks.
Open up a McDonald's. Open up a McDonald's. You'll have to provide all of that stuff,
Craig,
and more.
How many people can afford? Well, first of all, a McDonald's franchise is probably $1 million plus. The rich get richer.
Sure.
Who the heck? Do you think for a second the majority of people, the average man and woman, have the kind of money to open up a McDonald's? And if they do so, and they have that kind of money, they're hiring individuals and they're paying people to put all this together for them.
Well,
and if you go to an attorney and you hire an attorney, obviously an attorney, and I'm sure Scott Roberts can answer this next week, is going to assist you in putting this all together.
Sure.
But you're still talking about 10, 20, 30,000 just to have an attorney do all this possibly.
Okay, but Todd, open up a business. It's not like
Craig,
Todd, it's not
my
like
law
Little John
firm
can just open up a business.
My law firm, what did I have to do? Sign a lease and pay my rent every month?
And how long did you have to go to school? How much did that cost you? I mean, come on, and how many fees and how many taxes do you have to pay?
Nah, we're going to have to agree to disagree. I haven't even finished. They want to know, want information on your ventilation system.
Well, of course they
want
do.
a smoke-free area for employees. They want all this information.
Of course they do.
My point is, Craig, the average person listening out there who has never run a business, it takes years to learn how to run a business.
Sure.
How many businesses each year open and close?
Hundreds.
Somebody out there is going to put all their retirement, they're going to take loans out, and they're going to go into business, and they're going to be broke before they even start with what the state's requiring here.
Well, obviously, not everybody is meant to start businesses in this world, Todd. I mean, that's
my
just a
point.
Fact.
Is that I just don't feel like these rules and regulations are making it very easy for the average not when I say average, our listeners are outstanding.
Of course, but I know what you mean. The layperson. You're not, but the layperson. But that's exactly it. No offense to the layperson. I don't know anything about starting a business. You know what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to be starting one of these businesses because I don't know anything about it, nor do I have the money.
Craig, guess what? The government should put forth rules and regulations to make it easy for its citizens who voted these men and women in power in the first place to go into business. It's just an example, again, of how the men and women who for decades and decades and generations have grown CBD, who've supplied medicine to those that need it, who have fought, who have signed the signatures, to put these things on their local ballots, who have gone to the local township meetings, who have gone to the state capitals and met with men and women who are responsible for passing bills. It's just another example of how government takes things and just ruins it for everybody.
But here's the other side of it. You know right now.
Just my opinion.
I understand.
Just my
totally
opinion.
Get it. But the big white elephant in the room is we're talking about the state trying to make as legal as possible something that is federally illegal. Until prohibition ends across the country, it's going to be this tough to do because they've got to answer to other people. All of a sudden, if this becomes a federally...
This has nothing to do with the end of federal prohibition. It's
it does.
It's just, again, too much government. Look, I hate too much government. We all know that. I'm just saying, I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. We're Americans, okay?
I understand.
But too much government, again, ruins it for the men and women who go to work every day. They wake up, they pay their taxes, they raise their children. They're good people. And then, you get a handful of people together. You look, these rules, there have been, in fairness to the state, here, let me play the other side. In fairness to the state of Michigan, and I appreciate so much, on the other hand, how the state of Michigan has moved forward with all this.
Sure, think about that.
I appreciate the Attorney General, the governor for making sure after Governor Snyder, who did some great things for the state, that, none of this was derailed. And I do appreciate, the men and women at LARA and the head up of these agencies. But I represent the men and women who are the directional drillers, who are the iron workers, who are waitresses, who own family businesses that want to go into business. But again, these rules and regulations, the fees are reasonable, but there's so much required here. You're still going to have to hire an attorney or a law firm and pay tens of thousands of dollars to get to that point to begin with. And then, if you're lucky, you'll be successful.
We got to take a break. We can pick this back up when we come back after break because I've got a couple other things I want to tell you about this. But we do have to take a break on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. We'll be right back. The Todd L. Levitt Law Show thanks you for listening to our podcast. If you have a business you think people would want to hear about, the Todd L. Levitt Law Show accepts advertising. We can promote your business to a very specialized, targeted audience. Any size commitment and any budget. Email toddlevittlawshow@gmail.com for more information about sponsoring and advertising on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show podcast. Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. It's Craig, it's Todd, and we're talking about, what is it called, designated consumption businesses? Is that what the ruling is? We're talking about
smoke clubs. If you want to open up a business and have people come and charge a fee, and they can smoke on your property. But the state's requiring that within these establishments that there's a smoke-free area for employees to monitor the marijuana consumption area.
Sure.
You got to have ventilation systems. that direct the air from the marijuana consumption area to the outside of the building through a filtration system. I'm arguing successfully, I would say, Craig Russell, that it makes it very difficult, most people, to get from point A to point B to point C to point D to when they open up. And here's the other problem. In order to do this, you have to spend the time and effort to get your local community to allow this in the first place, to allow the zoning. And we already know across this country in states where marijuana is recreational that there's the minority of people in power who are preventing the majority of us who have voted for these laws to open up and even exist in the first place. And we already discussed how the cannabis industry is now becoming one of the fastest growing employment areas in the country, with all these universities now offering courses and curriculum.
All this business and everything. Now, I will agree with you there in that respect. The hardest thing of everything you just talked about, all the requirements that the state is putting forth on these consumption areas, these businesses where you can actually use product in, that is probably going to be the hardest fight of them all, is finding an area in a township or in a community that's going to allow this kind of a business, because there still is going to be that stigma and there's still going to be the problems. And I agree, that is the biggest problem. But you know what? I'm telling you, man, open up a hardware store, open up a grocery store, open up a fast food restaurant, open up just about any other kind of business, and you've got to go through zoning, you got to go through all this other stuff, all these things that you're talking about. Open up a bar, another place with a product that's similar to marijuana, alcohol. It is heavily regulated. You just got to do that. I mean, it's just how it is. If you're going to go into business and you're going to open up one of these businesses, you got to know that ahead of time. And it's probably not, that's why not everybody opens businesses and owns businesses. Some people are meant to work at the businesses. Some people are meant to own them. Not everybody can do that. I can't do it. There's no way in the world. I know maybe enough about it, but I don't have all the time and the energy to do that. That's got to be somebody else's job. Hey, I love radio. I worked in radio stations for 30 years. I would never own one. That's a hassle and a half. You want to talk about having to deal with the federal government? It's a big pain. So I think I agree that there's a lot of parts to it, but you know what? If it's worth it and you want to do it, you'll go by.
The point is, Craig, that is it worth it? I don't know. I don't know anyone that have not been opened yet.
Right.
Here's the point. I do appreciate, the men and women in our state capital who are making this possible so that individuals can go into business in the first place. And I love that these rules provide for other types of licenses other than the ones under the Michigan Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act. All I'm saying is they've made it as an attorney reading these rules. And I look, I get all this. I can do all this. I understand this. This is what I operate in and around for years, and in law school and as a law clerk. But the average person first has to hire an attorney. Second, you have to get the community to agree to this in the first place. There's a lot of communities who were okay with medical marijuana, and now they're saying no to recreation. It's unbelievable what's going on out there. It just needs to change. I mean,
That's all I'm saying. At least the state is making the fees reasonable, because you know what? Again, you go to open up a McDonald's or any kind of a fast food restaurant, you got to have $250,000 to $1 million right up front. You got to have all that kind of money. These businesses, you need, what is it, $1,000 for the license or the fee, the application? Yes, you might have to hire a lawyer, but...
Well, it's a $6,000 application fee. It's non-refundable up front. And if you do want to open up a designated consumption establishment or smoking club, it's only additional $1,000 fee, so that's pretty good.
$7,000 to open up a business, in all reality. I mean, granted,
Craig, you know what? You know how much money it's going to cost to open up? No, okay, a couple things. One, you have to comply with zoning, signage. You have to comply with OSHA standards, with Disability Act. Then if you have employees, you're going to have liability insurance. You're going to have unemployment insurance.
Open up a metal stamping
workers' compensation insurance. Can I go on and on? I can go on and on for you. You're going to have payroll. You're going to pay employee taxes, state taxes.
Open up a metal stamping plant. You'd have to have all of that and more.
You know what I'm going to open up, Craig? I'm opening up a tuna stand.
You're going to
I make the best tuna fish.
Well, there you go.
I'm just saying.
That'll be easier to do.
Hemp-infused mayonnaise.
That'll be easier
tuna.
to do.
I'm opening up tuna. I make the best tuna. My cousin Anthony, we just had a conversation about this. He makes amazing tuna fish as well. I'm not giving out my recipe, But Anthony and I are going to have a tuna cook-off.
Do you use Miracle Whip or mayonnaise to make your tuna fish?
I'm not telling you my recipe.
Because that's the difference. If you use mayonnaise, we can't be friends anymore. If you use Miracle Whip, I still love you. But if
I'm not telling you my recipe.
Okay. All right.
It's not coming out.
Just saying.
I'm just telling you.
Hey, didn't you have an email from somebody about wanting to know about driver's license restoration, too, to change gears a little bit? I knew we were going to talk about that.
I did. And the question was, and this is somebody in the state of Michigan, there's a lot. First off, and I tell my clients this, stop reading stuff online. if you want, if you're an individual out there,
good advice.
Here's an example. If you want to open up a marijuana business, talk to an attorney who specializes in that area of law. Don't read everything online.
Denise, Scott Roberts, those people.
Scott Roberts, Denise, Mike Camorn. We got Bart Morris, our good friend Matt Abel. We got some outstanding attorneys that we contact and that I'm in contact with on a regular basis in regards to this. And attorney Scott Roberts, outstanding marijuana lawyer, is coming on the show. He'll be on the show in 2 weeks because next week is the Asabo Canoe Race broadcast, so we won't be on next week. But you can still tune into our podcast, and I would definitely tune into the podcast and be sure to share it with you. But so, as a criminal defense lawyer and licensed restoration lawyer that I have been for 25 plus years, I once in a while have a client who I'll advise, and then they'll go online and read something else and come back to me, and I listen to them. And then I'll explain it to them. They'll go back online, and they'll get all upset about what they're reading, and I'll have to explain it to them again. Talk to your attorney. He or she is a specialist. If you're going through family law, custody cases, probate, disability, personal injury, talk to the lawyer. That's what they're there for. So there's too much garbage online.
Agreed. There's too much garbage just online in general.
But in the state of Michigan,
that's what you're paying your attorney to do, is to interpret that stuff and guide you and lead you the best way possible.
There's only 3 possible ways an individual can go to a circuit court judge in the state of Michigan and ask a judge for relief, meaning for restricted or full driving privileges. I get these calls all the time from individuals, not all the time, but often enough, whereby they had an attorney who represented their interests before the state of Michigan. They got denied any restricted privileges, and they're just fed up. And it's been a year or two thereafter. They're eligible again for restrictions, but they want to go right to circuit court. So here's the 3 ways you get into circuit court, Craig, at least in the state of Michigan.
Okay.
1, implied consent. There's a law in the state of Michigan. If you or someone you know is operating a motor vehicle in the state of Michigan, and if for whatever reason you get pulled over, and the officer has enough probable cause to ask you to submit to a chemical test, either blood, urine, or breath, and you refuse that test, well, there's a good chance in the state of Michigan you're going to lose your ability to operate a motor vehicle or your driving privileges for a period of 1 year. It's called an implied consent suspension. Most people do not know this, that if you are operating a motor vehicle on a roadway and you are requested to submit to the test, you have to take the test. Stop reading online that you should refuse to take the test. I'm not referring to the preliminary breath test at the scene. I'm referring to once you are placed under arrest and the officer reads through your chemical test rights, do not refuse that test, because regardless of what happens to the original case at hand, the state of Michigan is going to take your ability to operate a motor vehicle away for a period of 1 year. Now, within 14 days of that refusal or notification of it, you can apply for a hearing at a Secretary of State branch office. Very difficult to get beyond that point. But let's say you go to that hearing with an attorney such as myself. The officer proves that he or she had enough probable cause to ask you to submit to it in the first place. And they don't even need that type of standard. The standard of proof is it's implied. You have to take it. So you're going to lose there. That's when you can go to a circuit court judge and ask for restricted driving privileges. So in the state of Michigan, only once in a lifetime can you refuse to take that blood, urine, or breath test after being placed under arrest, whereby you can go to a circuit court judge and ask for a hardship license. It's called a hardship license that will allow you to drive to work, during employment, home from work. I've complained about this in the past, that it should be a broad license to allow you to do all kinds of things. So that license will be in place for the remainder of that 1 year suspension due to the implied consent refusal. After a year, you pay $125 reinstatement fee, get your full license back. So that's the first way, or first possibility in the state of Michigan that a circuit court judge can grant you a hardship license. through an implied consent suspension for a period of 1 year. And if you are somebody out there who is currently serving that 1 year implied consent suspension, and it's been 3 or 4 months, I can still take you to a circuit court judge and seek relief for you. There's no time period as to when you can or cannot go before that judge. There's no guarantee or promise there, but it's called implied consent hardship license, Craig.
And, of course, if you have any kind of issues with anything to do with your driver's license here in the state of Michigan, call Todd's office, 989-772-6000. If he can't personally help you, you have a network of the best driver's license restoration attorneys in the state, you being, of course, at the top of the list, that can help out especially. But if you're in the central and northern Michigan area, pretty much anywhere, Ithaca north, you would say, anywhere in the lower peninsula, you can help people out, correct?
Yeah, I help people with their driver's license who live all over the state of Michigan. I do quite a bit of out-of-state license restoration. If you were originally licensed in the state of Michigan, but you have permanently left the state, there's a process in which I can get you reinstated through the state, and therefore the state in which you now live in should provide you with some type of licensing. So, for instance, there's something called a compact. All 50 states are part of this compact,
right,
whereby if you're revoked or suspended in one state and you try moving to another state, more than likely that state may or may not give you a license, but eventually the system will catch up and they'll take it from you. So everybody's online together now. For instance, if you're revoked in the state of Michigan and you go to Florida, Florida's not going to give you a license because they're going to see that you were already revoked in the state of Michigan. So if you move to Florida, you first have to clear up Michigan before Florida will actually give you a license to operate a motor vehicle. I get calls from men and women, mostly men who work in the fields and, are built, just hardworking men.
Sure.
And they've now permanently left the state of Michigan, the Dakotas, the Carolinas, down south, Tennessee, Georgia. And when they were living in Michigan, because of 2 or more convictions for drinking and driving and other convictions, they're denied and revoked in Michigan, and now they want relief in the state in which they're living in. So what we do is we clear up Michigan. That opens the way for that state which they now live in to grant them driving privileges. So that's something we do a lot of.
989-772-6000. That's the best way to handle all this situation. But hey, we got to take a break, Todd, on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. When we come back, we'll wrap up the show right after this. The Todd L. Levitt Law Show thanks you for listening to our podcast. If you have a business you think people would want to hear about, the Todd L. Levitt Law Show accepts advertising. We can promote your business to a very specialized, targeted audience. Any size commitment and any budget. Email toddlevittlawshow@gmail.com for more information about sponsoring and advertising on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show podcast.
Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. Coming back with Echo and the Bunnyman, Craig. I picked that tunage because it's one of my all-time favorite songs.
I know, love them. Great 80s new wave band from England. Them along with Flock of Seagulls and let's see who else. Psychedelic Furs. Love those guys, all of them. But
yeah, and by the way,
yeah.
Oh, I just want to give a big shout out to all the men and women in the Grand Traverse Sheriff's Department up there in Grand Traverse area, Traverse City. It's the Grand Traverse Sheriff's Department. All the men and women do a great job out there keeping us safe on the roads. And a big shout out to my friend Jason, who I shredded the Vasa with last week. Good friend of mine, Jason. Big shout out to him.
And you said you had a couple more things you wanted to talk about the driver's license restoration, about getting your license back. You could say it in 60 seconds. Is that what you told me?
Yeah, so there's three ways to get into circuit court in the state of Michigan. One is through an implied consent hardship request. The other possibility is if you were grandfathered in prior to 1992 in the state of Michigan before the denied and revocation laws took effect. So how that works is the law that was in place at the time that the offense took place, you can go back to a circuit court judge and argue, hey, in 1991, during my last offense, circuit court judge had jurisdiction to grant relief, and I'm asking you to do the same under those laws because my offense was in 1989. So you're grandfathered in under the old law. And the third and final way is after a determination before a hearing officer for the state of Michigan, if you do get denied any type of relief or restricted licensing, there's a time period in which you can appeal to a circuit court judge and ask for relief. So those are the three ways: implied consent, grandfathered in, or after the determination and a denial, you can go to a circuit court judge. There are no other ways in the state of Michigan. And don't believe anything you read. I'm telling you for a fact, that's it, folks.
Todd knows. He's the man. He knows about this kind of stuff. So, of course, you can always find out online about that, and you can on your website, not on just general website, but online on your website, or you can call 989-772-6000 for any kind of information you need about driver's license restoration or things like that, or even about cannabis as well in the state of Michigan. So,
yep. And be sure to keep your eyes and ears open for all the motorcyclists out there. We love our brothers and sisters, parents and loved ones on motorcycles. Please keep them safe. Big thanks and gratitude, as always, to our veterans. We love you, vets. And what a great show, Craig. We have to go, don't we?
We do. We got to get going. The show's over, but we will not be back next week on 98.5 because of the Saddle River Canoe Marathon. But, of course, you can always find us on your favorite podcasting platforms, on Libsyn, iTunes. We're on iHeart. You can find us on TuneIn, on Podbeam, all over, SoundCloud, you name it. You can find the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. Download it. Tell your friends. Tell your neighbors. We got to go, Todd.
I'm not just a litigator. I'm an advocator. Take us out with some Echo and the Bunnymen. See you next week, Craig.
He will wait until you give yourself to him. You give yourself to him.
The Todd L. Levitt Law Show, brought to you by Chad Mallywell Drilling of Rosebush, Clark Modular Homes, your most experienced and trusted builder in Mount Pleasant, Clear Vision Windows, Siding, Roofing, and Attic Installation of Midland, Mackinac Properties and Northern Michigan Vacation Rentals, buying, selling, and renting properties in the Straits of Mackinac region since 1998, Tim's Collision Plus in Roscommon, Harrison Power Sports, Central Michigan's fastest growing full-line Arctic Cat dealer, and Dr. Robert Townsend and Denali Healthcare for your alternative healthcare needs.
Opinions expressed on this radio program do not necessarily reflect the views of this radio station.